Okay, update. So I haven't heard from Garrett Australia or USA, a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. However, I rang Jamie at Prospectors Patch, who I got the unit off, and like within 12 hours he had another one on its way to me. He even went in and opened the shop because they were closed over the Christmas break, sent another one out, which if Australia Post hadn't dropped the ball like they always do, I would have had last Friday. Now, I've been playing with the new one for 10 minutes, I guess, and already I know it's 1,000 times better. I'm not going to bother, trying to find a bit of gold and do a record live digs and all that bullshit, because I'm in around Kalgoorlie. There's not a lot of gold left around here that's easy to get to. I will do some more videos when I get back up towards home, where I know I can walk out onto a patch. But the reason I know that the other one now definitely had a fault, now whether it was a component supplier, Garrett themselves, or I think I mentioned it looked like the box had a bit of a dent in it, like it had been dropped, who knows. But this, oh shit, you can see that tiny little bit of rusty shit that I can't really even feel on my finger. It's just a little thin bit of tin plate. What's that, 4 or 5 inches? Now with the other machine I never would have got that. Now I'm running, fine mode, 49-27 ground balance. The ground's not hot here, probably a 5 out of 10, maybe 6. Sensitivity 5. Seems to handle 6 and 7 all right. So I'm trying not to make it a Axiom versus 6000 thing, but because I've used the 6000 for a year and a half and it's been very good to me, that's my reference point. So that's the only thing I can compare it to. It's definitely different. I like it even more. The settings make a huge difference. It does communicate very well with the ground that you're on to tell you this, like I said, isn't very hot here, but it does let you know. And the only way I can describe it, if I can find some clear ground. Is there a difference? Well, this is the only way I can think to describe it. That's your threshold, and it's too big. We'll use this bit of quartz as a target. So as you go over the threshold, you get your sound wave to indicate there's a target. And you set your threshold by sensitivity, how hard the ground is. I'm using fine, by the way. It's working on that quite fine here. It doesn't need to be on normal or anything. This threshold is where you dial as much, I guess, power into the thing as you can, while still having a threshold that enables you to hear the target. I don't, at this point, I'm probably 90% sure it actually has more gain, more power, more available power than a 6000, and it seems to manage that power a bit better than the 6000. But this is the only way I can describe how it feels to use it and the difference. Same target. This is your threshold that you set with your 6000. That really is, because the difference between the threshold point and that point, and the high point in the sound wave, that's what you hear to find your nugget. The Axiom, the threshold's down here. And I'm sure some technical people are going to shoot me down in flames. So don't care. I'm just here to tell you what it seems like to me. It seems like the threshold is lower, so I can dial more power into it and it handles the ground. Even though this ground here isn't very hot, it's markedly different to what I would expect with the 6000. The 6000 is, and like I said, I run it flat out, threshold back on, and then just live with the ground noise. I got used to the ground noise. I like running machines hot. This one I feel more confident with. I feel that, like that tiny little bit of shit that I found, and with the 6000 probably would have heard that as well. In fact, I'm almost sure I would have. However, it was easier to hear, if that makes any sense. It wasn't, while the threshold is still there and still somewhat intrusive, in the 6000, that little bit of shit in the ground at 5 inches would have been, I would have heard it. I don't know if a newer person would have heard it, but you couldn't miss it with Axiom. You just couldn't miss it. It was absolutely, definitely a target. So its ability to handle a threshold or more power with more sensitivity, same thing I guess, more gain, is what really, for me, sets it apart. That's the simplest way I can explain it. The threshold seems to be a better threshold at a higher, lower, lower point, I guess, that enables you to hear the sound better. And like I said on that post, it's not like the 6000 that's just on the red line the whole time. It doesn't seem like that at all. Even with the power cranked up, running on 7 or 8, which I think I could probably run 8 here once I get a bit more used to it. It still seems to manage that threshold to a point where the target separation comes through quite strongly. Oh, and one thing I must say, when you get one thing you have to do, and it does make a huge difference, is go into the tone. And once you've got a threshold and everything set up, and it's all running smooth, and you find a target or whatever, play with the tone, because I found that, I guess every person's different in what tone suits their hearing the best. I'm running, I think, 80 at the moment, and that seems to work for me. There's another guy who's got one that I know, I think he uses 42, and it does make a difference. That tone adjustment, that with the 6000, you've kind of got to get used to the tone, whereas on this one you can wind your tone up and down and find what suits you best, what you can hear the best, and then use it. And it does make a difference. I mean, I've noticed a dramatic difference in between when I first turned it on to now, actually using the tone to better my ability to hear. Like I said, I'm not technical, so I hope you get what I mean. I'm using headphones today. This unit is 1,000 times better than the other one, has no issues, it is smooth, it is, I think it's, my question, I guess, what everybody wants to know, is it better than the 6000? Well, for me, I think it is, because of how I detect. I like to run a lot of gain. I like a machine to be at its limit, or as much as it possibly can be, so I can still hear a target. Whether it would suit everybody, I don't know. I think it would probably suit everybody, because it runs just as well. I can run it on that in the hole over there. I was running 5 when I heard that, so it would have fairly well blown my eardrums off if I was cranked up to 7 or 8. I prefer a monocoil, as most people do. This little monocoil is awesome. The fact that it showed me that tiny little bit of shit, which the other machine that I've sent back, it wouldn't have found that. It did find that shotgun pellet at, I think it was bit over 4 inches. But I don't think that other machine would have heard that bit of rusty shit that I just pulled out of the ground. For me, it's better than the 6000. I would, if I had to walk up to the back of the truck and I had to pick one or the other, and particularly if the ground was unknown, I'd grab this every time. It's more comfortable, it's lighter. I think it performs at least as well as the 6000, and once you get your head around it, perhaps even better. And I can't wait till we can get some aftermarket coils for it, like if Rowan at Nugget Finder or somebody has a crack, and I think D-Tech are making some, because it is, yeah, I'm very impressed. It's now, I think, my go-to detector. Still keep the 6000. Once I get it back off Bo, I don't know whether it's an emotional attachment because of how much gold it got me last year, but I can't see myself ever not having a 6000. But I know now within myself that if I walk up to the back of the truck, I'm going to pick up one machine. This will be the one. I think it has a lot of the gain being cranked right up, which I think was at Jamie's suggestion, and Steve as well. I think that if somebody can make a coil that can make that extra gain accessible on most ground, I don't know the physics of it all, but I do know that when I had the 12x7 on the 6000, and like I said, I don't mess around with the 6000, I just run it flat out. I noticed immediately it was much smoother, very much like wherever my scratchings are in the ground. The Nugget Finder coil on the 6000 did that sort of thing. It seemed to make the threshold less intrusive at a similar level or the same settings as the standard coil would have a more intrusive threshold. I'm not sure if that's hand-built coil or mass-produced coil, or I'm sure there's an explanation for it. But yeah, overall, it's the shit. I'm very, very surprised at how good it is, and that bit of stuff I just dug out tells me straight away this thing is every bit as good as a 6000, and it will be my go-to choice. Now I've got ground tracking off. One of the ways that I think it handles the ground better than the 6000, in fact I'm sure it does, with the 6, when you move from, as you're walking along and you're sweeping your coil, and you move from one style of ground into another, not necessarily hotter. If you run the magnet over it, it doesn't pick up anything more on the magnet, and again, not all that scientific, but works for me. The 6000 tends to, it's more abrupt, if you know what I mean. It will say, whoa, something's changed. This, even though it does communicate with you and does let you know that something has changed, the old saying, if the sound's changed, the ground's changed, it's not as in your face. It's almost like it, like the difference in ground doesn't mean as much to this machine as it does the 6. It seems to deal with that change better. Eventually it will tell you, and you'll get your threshold will start to play up a bit, and you do a ground balance and get it balanced on that different ground. But I think it's kind of like a 6000 that can handle the ground better, is probably the best way to put it. I think it was worth buying. Unfortunately I got a dud one. I'm glad it happened to me, actually, because because of where I am. If I just bought it and drove all the way back to Kew, I'd be pissed. And it would be unfortunate for someone, especially somebody new into this, to get a dud one like I had. They might throw their hands up in the air and walk away from detecting altogether. So I'm in a way glad it was me that got it. I'm glad I bought it off Jamie, because the way that he resolved the problem was the best service I've had in memory. I can't remember anybody ever with anything, not just prospecting stuff, but anything. I've never known anyone to be so quick off the mark to resolve a problem. Yeah, that's about it. Better, that'll have to be your call. For me personally, yes, it's better. I like it better than the 6000, and it'll be my everyday machine now.